We're floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. Hi, welcome to the Wingmen Show. My name is Drew Brown. We hope to inspire, entertain, and learn something so we can all make this world a better place for our children. I'd like to introduce to you somebody who's my friend, my wingman, my main man, and I have a wingman watching my back, Dr. Paul Thompson. Hey, Paul, what's happening?
Oh, not much. Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Thompson, and you just heard from Mr. Drew Brown, Dark Gable. He's the American dream. He's the man, the myth, the legend, the pilot's pilot, the role model's role model, and most importantly, his royal fullness. How are you doing today, Mr. Dark Gable?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad I'm full of knowledge, Paul. I'm glad I'm full of knowledge. Well, we're going to have a great show right now. Check this out. Dr. Paul, what's up, my brother? How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm alive. I'm kicking. The lighting is good, you told me, and we're ready to do a show.
Yeah, tell me about this wingman you got.
This wingman is interesting. Now, you've heard of Top Gun and Cougar and Merlin and Maverick and Goose and
Dark Gable and Ebony.
Dark Gable and Ebony, the most important ones. That's the ones you should.
Right.
That's where they should do a movie. I've got ideas for several screenplay ideas.
The Dark Gable story starring Drew Brown.
Starring Drew Brown, or maybe get someone to play Drew Brown.
Right.
The wingman is good. This is somebody, sometimes, your wingman may not always be in the air, but this week's wingman has done something. There's 5 letters I want you to remember. CCMRT. CCMRT. Yeah, CCMRT.
Great. I started my morning off this morning with Peleton. I got a new dude, Rad, with the body weight exercises. I'm telling you, they're not easy. All you have to do is try to do them better, and it gets harder. But it's really good. And one thing I like about Peleton and the classes per se is you start knowing the people, but there's no way I would do the extra 3 or 4 reps that they make me do. And that's the reps that build muscle.
That's right.
It's the ones at the end, the ones that you hate, that tear the muscle, that actually build muscle. So anyway, thank God for them. I went to Costco. I don't have much Costco stuff. Oh, yeah. For Memorial Day, I got this gyro meat. Just like New York, the gyros.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
in a bag gyro meat. So we're serving gyros for a picnic. Okay. What is your Costco story? My
Costco is pretty benign. I got a bunch of water. I like the sparkling water, especially it's carbonated water, but it's really good when you put some lemon. I usually put lime in it and ice, and I have it in a thermos. I've got one right over here. And think of when you're hot and sweaty, whatever. It's just great going down winter, summer. I do it every morning. I set it up.
Seltzer. That's my Jewish grandmother. We had the seltzer man. I grew up on that stuff. And when people call it sparkling, you know what they call it? You told me, I remembered they call in France gas.
Yeah, they said, well, do you want water? You want gas or no gas?
Right.
No seltzer. Gas or no gas.
Right. Everybody out there, thank you for watching us. Thank you for listening to us, our old and new listeners. And if you would do us a favor, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts. All right, let's start this bad boy off here. Something happened horrific in Buffalo this week. And no matter when you hear this show, it'll always be horrific. But some kid killed 10 people, wounded 3 others in a supermarket. And he went after black people. And he was a young white kid. 18 to me is still young and dumb, so he's a kid. And it was so horrific that I had really ill feelings. And what I'd like to talk about today is, how do you deal with hate? Whenever you watch some of those real bad, for me, it's Nazi movies and Ku Klux Klan movies. I have hate in my heart. But, sometimes you can watch some of these movies like Amistad or Glory, and I really start feeling something in my stomach that's not good because of the way people were treated. And what's happening now is I don't understand this hate that this kid had in his heart to murder people. I know that killing is like right there in your face all the time now with video games, with the news. Well, I mean, every day on the news, it's killing, killing, killing.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Paul, what do we do with our hatred? What's the answer? I'll tell you what I do with it. Tell me what you think.
I don't have any real personal hatreds, number one. Yeah, you can get what you said about watching some of these movies and stuff. Yeah, it can build up, and you have to kind of modulate that a little bit. But in terms of a mass shooting, this is obviously a racial killing. It's not because he had COVID or a hangnail or some kind of nonsense. But it's out of the clear blue. Unfortunately, I expect a lot more to happen. And the more you try to put logic behind it, the more confused you'll become.
That's correct.
Whatever they say, at this point, I stopped caring about that kind of stuff probably around, maybe late 70s, to be honest with you. I don't understand any better today than then. But, people being replaced. And tell me, if you're worried about being replaced by another population, how does slaughtering senior citizens and somebody's grandma affect that?
No, what you're doing.
There's no logic behind it. Or it's the same thing of going.
You answered that.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Logic behind an illogical thought.
Or murdering a bunch of grandmothers at a church where you're praying,
killing anybody. How about that?
Right. You can't go by that. I think it's a sign of something else. It's in the air. There's a frequency that's being broadcast that we really don't tune into. You see the effects of it, but we really don't tune into it. But there's something else.
We have a good life, Dr. Paul. There are people who have shitty lives who tune into a certain frequency. You hit it on the head. We have better lives, so we tune into another frequency. We don't go through that. These are people who have nothing, who don't want anything, and don't see any way out. This is something that we talk about all the time on the show called mental illness. This is mental illness. It could come out in race. It could come out in religion. It could come out in sex, whatever you want. It's mental illness.
Yeah, I don't deny that they're crazy. And to your point, you're kind of right. Really successful people don't spend a lot of time dumping on other people unless that's their job in the media. Because the truth is, and you probably know this from being on air so much, there's a lot of money in hate. Mm. If you market it properly, you can do very well. You can use yours or OPM, you can leverage other people's stuff, and you're just kind of the ringmaster. And you just step away.
Remember when we started this show, Dr. Paul, and I told you the one thing I don't want, even though we're doing YouTube, and I love our listeners, I love them, but I didn't want comments. And that's because a while back, I did a YouTube channel called The American Black Jew in Paradise, where I dressed up with a little payas and a yarmulke, and I'm black with sunglasses. Mm-hmm. And I gave my opinion about fatherhood, about drugs, about school, about things like that, issues, families. I gave real opinions about it. Funny, too. I thought so. Anyway, point being, the only comments I had were hatred towards blacks and Jews. Not one comment about anything I had to say. Not one. It was ugly. And I couldn't believe there were people out there like that.
There's always been people out there, and that goes for every generation. Getting back, not to beat a dead horse, but the whole hate thing, I think it depends. Our reactions to it kind of depend on our age. If you were born, during Jim Crow, post Jim Crow, you have different expectations. And for many people born who are, I'd say, 50 and under, a lot of things have been happening in the last 20 years are brand new. The people who are older, our age or older, it's kind of a continuation.
I think hate is taught in the house, Dr. Paul. I think back in the days when black people were slaves, there were white people who hated slavery. Okay, so it wasn't a color issue. The issue was you have parents or people around you who fester hate. And that's how
no question.
That's
No
how
question.
kids grow up. And
No
one of the
question.
reasons people hate is because they want to blame somebody else for their failures, whether it's white, black, Native American, Asian, whatever you want. If you find hate towards another person, it's kind of like this is the reason my life is like this, because they are like that. Anyway, I want to tell you how I deal with hate.
Tell
You
me.
deal with it by not thinking about it, and God bless you. I'll work towards that. But I care about people a lot. And what I do is, honest to goodness, this is not religious, everybody. I do know that there's a God. He's bigger than me. I don't want to call his name. My dad and I, my family, we call him Shorty. But that's not the point. The point is that there must be a reason for this. And I don't need to know the reason all the time. I don't need to know all the reasons all the time. And it helps me. Even though I go through that initial little hate, I realize that everything's going to be okay. I have to live by that creed. I have to live by that creed. And talking about parents, Dr. Paul, we have a baby formula shortage. What I want to know is what happened to breastfeeding? And I just read a report today that mothers now, because there's no food, they're sharing breast milk, which is potentially dangerous. And it's dangerous to put water in formula. It's different. It's dangerous to make your own formula. But your own formula should be breast milk. What is the reason that women are not breastfeeding their kids? And thank God my daughter Heather is breastfeeding my grandson, baby Drew-Dini. God bless it. But give me a reason, Dr. Paul, why women are not breastfeeding as much.
I draw a blank on that. I have no idea. Drew-Dini. I do like that.
And his name is Drew Dean.
Drew Dean. Okay. And Drew
That's
Dean.
his real name. Cool. His middle name is Dean.
Okay.
And because the daddy Bundini, all you got to do is put an I on it or a Y and it's Drew-Dini.
Oh, you got a call sign already, which has nothing to do with breast milk.
Talking about, right?
Yeah, well, what the president has imposed the Defense Production Act, where they've got to make a bunch of it. I wonder if FedEx will be bringing it in. I guess they bring it in from Europe.
You like my FedEx picture?
That's a good picture. That's a good picture. You like my picture?
I like it. Blue Angels. I like that. That's an F4 too. That's a bad.
That's a F4.
That's a Phantom, Jack. I saw them when I was in Israel. When I lived in Israel for a year in the 10th grade, those Israeli Phantoms used to fly overhead. They are badass.
Yeah, that's my favorite airplane to just to look at.
Yeah,
just the way they looked. Just the way the look was great.
Maybe that's when the first little hint of thinking flying jets might have even entered my brain. I never thought about it like that. But let's go back to our subject.
Sure.
Breastfeeding. Do you know that 86% of the formula is bought by women in the WIC program?
86%.
It's 2/3 of the baby formula of the WIC program, low income women. And you made me say it, and I'm joking, but if you're not working and you're sitting at home with babies, Jerry Springer comes on, you can use a DVR for Jerry Springer. Breastfeed your kids. Unless you're ingesting stuff that you shouldn't be breastfeeding your kids. How about that one?
Okay.
If you're getting high and drinking and smoking, please don't breastfeed your kids.
Yeah. Well, so these are watching Jerry Springer, so they're not looking at C-SPAN and the History Channel.
I guess some of them are.
Okay.
So you have a reason for breastfeeding, the stoppage? Because in other countries, I think that's the only way they get food. There's a reason breastfeeding is supposed to be. It should be the healthiest thing you can give your child.
Yeah, I've never given any thought to it, and I guess it takes a while. You can't just do it like in 2 seconds.
No, there's a procedure, but you can't do sex in 2 seconds either.
I guess we'll see.
All right.
I don't think it's going to last forever, because I know they've ramped up production. They said it'll probably be a few weeks, maybe a few months.
Do people know what that production act is? President Biden said that these companies must make baby milk. So the ones who are making Coffee Mate and your little creamers, they're making baby formula now. And that brings me to a PSA. This is a Wingman PSA. COVID tests are being given away free. go to covidtest.gov. That's COVIDTESTS.gov. You get 8 free COVID tests. That's my PSA. And guess what? They've given boosters for kids 5 to 11. But the biggest one, I need to do this through the megaphone. Ladies and gentlemen, beware of the new virus called monkeypox. Monkeypox. Monkeypox.
Well, the monkeypox doesn't spread like COVID, and there's kind of a treatment for it. It looks nasty from what I've seen if you get it. But if you're not hanging around with monkeys or anyone that's been around them, you're probably all right.
They had a case in New York. It's just funny. It's just like more stuff. That's kind of why I said it. It's not a problem yet, but just the mere fact that there's a new one called monkeypox. Something happened real funny. I just mentioned President Biden, but the president of the United States, they always have a detail around them called the Secret Service.
Right.
And the other day, 2 Secret Service people got sent home because they had a drunken fight in front of the hotel where the president was. The hotel happens to be the hotel you and I stayed in many times when we flew to Korea. This was in Korea, and as we know, this is a bad hotel. It's really a nice hotel, man.
Very nice hotel.
Yeah. Tell me about your experience, and what do you think about these Secret Service agents getting drunk, getting in a fight, and the report said it was about a cab, but they got into an argument with regular people.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, from what I saw, I guess they were doing some bar hopping, and it looked like they came back to the hotel. So I'm not sure. More than likely, I'm going to guess it had something to do with the fare. But most of the stuff that I know of is down in Itaewon, which is a section, and you can walk that. You can walk. It's maybe you can walk it like in maybe 5 minutes or so. If you don't know where you are. Downhill in 5 minutes. Uphill, you're gonna use some leg muscles, but it's maybe 15 minutes uphill, 5 minutes down. It's not a big deal. So it sounds like one of them was really, really messed up, and that's a high visibility position. You're protecting the president, and I don't think I'd want to be in their shoes.
I think Secret Service men, to be honest with you, or Secret Service men and women, I think they're the top cop. Because we were talking about this, they work for somebody who can get them out of any trouble. When you work for the Detroit Police Department, there's some trouble that the mayor can't get you out of. Mm-hmm. The guy who you work for now can get you out of anything. It's almost like the top mafia. Yeah. And I think that their egos get a little bit too much of them. And I think they get very special kind of people in those positions also.
Yeah, I don't know who's doing it.
In combination with that male or that big, what do you call it, that dominant ego with whiskey, you mix them two together, you're going to have a fight. But you're also going to get somebody who will step in front of a bullet for the president.
Yeah, true. I mean, the cab drivers in Korea the few I've been around were always fine. How could you mess that up? That is a really nice hotel.
Yes. And you know what's a trip? Tell them, Dr. Paul, in Asia, tipping is not really wanted. It's amazing. In Japan, especially, when we get out of cabs, they don't want the tip. It's almost like I was in another country in Miramar. They don't want a tip. It's their thinking is, this is my job. Mm-hmm. Why are you giving me extra? Right.
I have tipped in Korea, and I see people, they always took it. They didn't look funny at it. In Japan, no. That's they
I think
look
it was
at you
Japan
funny.
I was talking about.
Yeah, Japan, they look at you like, what, is there something wrong? If you do that,
that's right.
Give your money back. Very, very different culture.
How much money do you think Elon tips when he buys, Elon Musk? No kidding. When he buys a $1,000 dinner, how much do you think he gives?
Maybe $1,000 dinner. I'm sure he'd probably give maybe that amount.
Oh, he doubles it.
Yeah, if it's good service.
I would think so. That's what I would do. But this man's got a lot of money. He's been talking about buying Twitter. I have figured this out. Now there's a rumor he's not, that the deal is going to go through. except that we read that if this Twitter deal goes through and he does not buy Twitter, it's $1 billion penalty on him. But what he's actually gotten is $1 billion worth of advertising and marketing. My dad said, it doesn't matter what they say about you, just make sure they spell your name right. So he's gotten that much advertising for all his other things.
Yeah. And for him, that may be a very small price to pay. And he can probably write off his taxes too.
He probably can pay some lawyers $100 million to get out of it.
Yeah. Or to cut it down some bit. Yeah, he'll be okay. He'll be all right.
You know why we talk about money here on the show is because in America, this is called capitalism. And it's an easier life if you have a couple dollars in your pocket. We're trying to give information to people who haven't heard how to make real money. And it's not by rap music always. It's not by basketball. It's not by gambling or robbing or doing any crazy things that you see out there. It's through hard work. And one of them is financial investing. And that's how Dr. Paul and I got a couple of dollars. So we want to pass this on. We just bought Ford. So let's give an update. We bought 100 shares of Ford apiece. And we bought it at $14, I believe, and 69 cents. And we just went through probably the worst week in the market for a very long time. Isn't that true, Dr. Paul?
Yeah, it closed yesterday at $12.50. It was down 35 cents. So we're down a couple bucks. So far, we'll see. One of the things that probably prompted that is that Ford has a big recall out now.
For what?
And it's for 350,000 vehicles. There's some SUVs are made, I think, in 2020 or 2021 that may just spontaneously combust, catch on fire.
Oh, that's
with the engine shut off. Most of them with the engine shut off. That's not good.
No, that's not good. I don't think that's why their stock went down. Everybody's stock went down.
Yeah.
We're buying the speculation. But, Paul, we have to tell these people we didn't lose a dime. You don't lose until you sell. So even though if we wanted to sell right now, we would lose $200 a piece, I think.
Yeah.
But we're not selling, so we haven't lost anything.
No. Yeah. So I'm just looking at it. And you were talking about Walmart, too. Walmart's up a little bit. Yeah, I didn't look at Target. Walmart was $119.20, up 13 cents yesterday.
Target was down 25% this week. Walmart was down this week. It was up yesterday. My point being, or what we wanted to say is, this might be a time to buy. I look at positives and negatives. The whole idea is buy low, sell high.
Yeah, if it's a good company, it's going to be a good company. With the ups and downs, the amount of money they're spending on fuel, they didn't quite take it in consideration. So their their earnings were less than expected. Fuel costs were high, and people were not buying as much stuff. So that's a blip. So you're right. You can take advantage of it.
So when you and I were flying the friendly skies of the Mediterranean and the North Atlantic and all the places that we've been all over the world in our Navy jets, at night, in the morning, all times of the day, have you ever seen a UFO? Because they just did something about UFOs in the government. We just had it in Congress. They wanted to talk to Navy pilots and other pilots about UFOs. Now, personally, I would love to say that I've seen one. I do believe in them, but I haven't seen one myself. But the funniest one is when you tried to rendezvous on a star, meaning tried to actually join up with one thinking it was a UFO. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was true. That was in a long time ago. It was doing some exercise off the coast of Puerto Rico. And it was just a brilliantly clear night, just clear. All the stars are sparkling. I mean, there's no lights. It's just sparkling. And this one seemed to, I think we were supposed to intercept whatever you saw. This one just seemed to grow, and it seemed to be like really, really close to me. And I said, well, I went to check it out and go a little faster, and it would start maneuvering, and I'd maneuver, it would maneuver, I would maneuver. And it really had nothing to do. And after a while, this is going on for it felt like an hour, but it was probably maybe a good 5 or 6 minutes. And it's maneuvering, but I'm going to get it. And I'm doing all this kind of stuff. And after a while, I'm thinking like, and it just takes its place in the sky. And I realized it's actually a star. But it was so vivid where it seemed like it was almost next to me. And then it kind of moved away and I was just trying to catch it.
Dr. Paul, maybe it was next to you and then became a star. They're very, very crafty people, the UFO.
Moving fast. That's the only time I really saw another UFO was actually on the ground. I was in college with a roommate. We watched it for about, it was at night for about, it was a good solid hour and a half. It was over Pittsburgh, and we were watching this thing. I thought it was a helicopter. And we called there was it wasn't a planetarium, but there was an observation place in the city. We called them. They said, we don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing scheduled tonight. We looked at it for an hour and a half. Lights are coming down. It was
why?
Weird.
You know why?
No.
Let me read you. This is why this is BS in Congress when they had this hearing. This is what their opening statement was. The Pentagon officials said they had to be careful. And I'm going to read it to you, quote, "We do not want potential adversaries to know exactly what we're able to see or understand or how we come to the conclusion," Mr. Bray said. "Therefore, disclosures must be carefully considered on a case-by-case basis," meaning we're not telling you shit.
Yeah, I watched some of it and I'm thinking, what was the point of the whole thing?
That's the point.
And I always wondered too, most of these incidents, it seems to involve the Navy. I don't hear the Air Force, the Army, Marine Corps. It's always Navy stuff. And most of these things they're all in warning areas. And warning areas are typically over the water, it can be over land, over the water where there's a warning, like if there's anything hot going on, if you're not part of that operation, you don't go there. You don't need to be there. If it's cold, then yeah, you can go through. They'll let you through. Don't go there. Don't ask why.
Well, you know what they say about what we learned about Navy pilots? There are only two kinds of pilots in the world. Ones that fly off of ships and ones that wish they could. And talking about flying, Dr. Paul, give us our Wingman story, please.
Okay, this involves, they're actually both wingmen to each other. But here's the situation. Imagine you're flying as a passenger in the back of an airplane and the pilot becomes incapacitated. Not long ago, there's a couple of guys were coming back from a fishing trip in the Bahamas, and they notice their pilot becomes unresponsive, and he slumps over. And his chest is pushing against the controls, and the airplane is headed down towards the water. These two guys, they get him off the controls, they move him out of the seat, and they're sitting in the seat. And the one guy tries to put his headset on so he can talk to somebody. It's messed up. He doesn't know where to plug in. But there's a second one that's already plugged in, so he puts that one on. And he gets on a radio. He's got the wherewithal to.
Well, first he pulled out of that dive.
Came out of the dive, yeah, knowing how to do that. And he said he knew enough that if he pulled too much, the airplane might stall. So he knew what a stall was, which was just impressive. And he gets on the radio and he says, "I've got a serious situation here. The pilot is incoherent, and I have no idea how to fly the airplane." Now that's a serious thing. And some airline pilots probably make a joke about the captain's incoherent, but the pilot is incoherent. He basically was having a heart issue right then and there. They move him out. He gets on the radio, and from wherever, I forgot where he was in the Bahamas, to the U.S. was not that far in terms of distance. He gets on the radio and he talks to this controller. And I guess the radios were set up where this guy was already on the right frequency. He's talking to the controllers. So he resumes communication, I guess pushing the buttons. He figures out how to do that. And they talk him into coming to an airport. And he decided to bring him into Palm Beach International. The controller was a guy named Robert Morgan. They called him Captain Morgan. But he was an air traffic controller, he's a radar controller. And the pilot was a guy named Darren Harrison, who didn't fly. I think he was an interior decorator or something like that. He had no idea how to fly. And this Captain Morgan has the wherewithal to talk to some people, and he gets a layout of the cockpit of this airplane. It was called a Caravan, or Cessna 208. They called it Caravan. I mean, FedEx has a bunch of them too. It's a single engine turboprop airplane. And he's got the layout, and he's telling the guy what to do. And he said, they first of all had to locate him. They found him found out who he was, where he was, and told him to fly north, fly along the coastline. So they were going to bring him into one airport, but he said, nah, it's kind of small. So he said, I want to get him into the largest piece of land, biggest runway that's reasonable. So he vectored him to Palm Beach International. Now, the good thing about this is not only is it extraordinary, it happened during the daytime and on a nice day. There are a lot of things that were in his favor. This would be impossible in other situations. And he vectors him, goes left, go right, gives him little headings, and he gets close. And actually, he sets him up for a 200, almost a teardrop turn, a 270-degree turn to lose altitude and give him a nice straightaway. You can see the radar plot of it. And he does it really, really well. And the airplane lands. I think maybe we can get a picture, a video of him landing. I've seen it online. He actually lands this airplane. He's not sure how to stop it. He says, I'm not sure how to stop it. And the thing about this instructor, he was, he's an air traffic controller. He's just looking at a radar screen. He's telling this guy how to fly the airplane based on a paper
a layout of the cockpit.
Yeah, a paper layout of the cockpit. He's never flown this airplane himself. He said, well, it's a Cessna, so the brakes should be at the top of the rudder pedals, and he's describing it. And that works. The guy lands. He gets it stopped. They come out. They take a nice picture together. And the big thing is that, it's towards the end, the radar, he's talking to him. He's getting him to lower, go down. Don't go below 110 knots. He took a speed. And the guy I think he was even partial panel, because this airplane had, touch screens, display screens like modern airlines have. But apparently there's something wrong with the display. Maybe it was dim. He couldn't adjust it. So I think he was going on standby instruments, which is
this guy's a real wingman who helped him.
He's serious wingman. He's in a radar room, in a little dark room, and he's talking him through. And he said he talked him down into 300 feet. That's as low as his radar went. And then he just kind of lost contact. By this time, he's talking to the tower, and he lands safely. So he said his heart kind of stopped. Then he found that he landed. And he comes out, and they take all kinds of pictures. But the key thing to know is that those letters CCMRT, which to me stands for cooperation, communication, mutual respect, and trust, and a lot of all of it. Other than that, it was basically a miracle. That was a miracle on the Hudson itself.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. That was a wonderful Wingman story. You left us all feeling really good. Dr. Paul, I pray for peace.
I do too, every day.
Thank you once again, Dr. Paul Thompson, my friend. Thank you for your love, your time, and that's something that we won't ever get back. I want to thank all the listeners, too. Thank you so much for doing the show, Dr. Paul. We're jamming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drew, for inviting me on. Always good to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast or any of the podcasts. If you're looking at YouTube, they say smash the like button. Don't smash it. Just press it gently and use as a link to all your friends. You can also look at us on our website, wingmenshow.com, WINGMEN show, SHOW.com, altogether, wingmenshow.com. And we hope to see you in the future. Thanks again, Mr. Drew.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're still floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. May there be peace on earth and goodwill towards all men and women.